This is a Radio 786 podcast.
I have in studio with me Assistant Professor and Research Fellow at the Maqasid Institute, as well as at the International Peace University of South Africa, postdoctoral researcher at Universidad Veracruzana in Mexico, PhD in Social Sciences and Islamic Studies from the University of Freiburg, Switzerland, holding a master's in social work, as well as having previous work experience as a social worker in prison and project management for the United Nations in Algeria, particularly in the field of rehabilitation of prisoners, and has traveled to 50 countries in order to visit Muslim communities and doing field research. Dr. Yahya Baptiste Brodard. Now, just some background as to why we have a doctor in studio. There is a course on offer by IPSA. It's titled Contemporary Muslim Societies and Organizations. It is a 5-week course on offer by IPSA, as mentioned, in partnership with the Maqasid Institution, and it is presented by Dr. Yahya Baptiste. Now, I've read through the description of this course, and it is absolutely fascinating. I just want to put that out there. So this morning we'll be exploring how exactly Doctor has come up with the content. We'll be exploring a little bit, giving a bit of insight into what you can expect from the content of the course. Dr. Yahya, you are very well traveled, mashallah. You hold a number of degrees which most people would perhaps not even think to use in the way that you have put them together. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've developed the course based on, your own experiences?
Shukran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's a very good question for me to start, because actually this course is kind of a result of a personal journey to Islam, to the Muslim communities around the world. And it's a result of my own experience, as you mentioned, that I couldn't have done maybe 10 or 15 years ago, because it mostly built on empirical research studies, as well as meetings with a lot of Muslims around the world in a lot of communities in various countries. And that's the only way I could find myself to design the course in a maybe original manner in order to tackle so important issues we have today, but by making sure it's linked to contemporary challenge, making sure it's grounded in empirical things and relate to people's lives, to people's experience in various countries. So I really try to give some theoretical content for sure, but at the same time to make sure it's related to concrete examples and real situations that Muslims or other people live around the world.
So, Doctor, can you give us some insight as to why exactly it is that you find the study of Muslim societies, particularly contemporary Muslim societies, so interesting?
I think at this age is very crucial to have such a reflection, analysis of what's happening in Muslim societies and the Muslim world, because we are in an area where everything is going so fast. And activism is widespread now, but sometimes we don't take the time to really think on problems. And activism may lead to wrong behaviors, to mistakes, and I have a lot of examples to that, so maybe later we can talk about this. But my point is that activism without knowledge, without reflection, may lead to errors and mistakes and practice that against Islamic principles or against Islamic teachings. And at that time where everyone is so busy, I think it's needed though to take the time to reflect on more theoretical contemporary challenges facing in Muslim societies. The idea here is really to assess reality, actually, not just to think about what Islam teaches, but how Islam concretely expressed in people's life.
Now, it's very interesting that we often, and we sometimes we pose it as a joke that Muslims are so occupied by debating how far off the ground your pants needs to be or what the length of your beard should be, that a cause like this seems like it's beyond what society is sort of ready for. So what sort of challenges would we as Muslim societies right across the globe, what sort of challenges are we then facing?
There are plenty of challenges now, but what I think here first is that a lot of Muslims have been raised in a specific location. So here in Cape Town, some of our Muslim brothers and sisters here may have the experience only on their proper town or country, and they ignore what's going in other Muslim societies. So when they travel or when someone comes from outside, they may be surprised by the way he practices or she practices Islam, and they may think it may be wrong in terms of theology. Actually, this is also the idea of the course, is to show Islam in its diversity, beyond the oneness of its main message, but actually within concrete manifestations, it has diverse forms, and I think it's very important and crucial for us to understand that before judging, just to understand the roots and the origin of such a diversification of Islamic practice and talks, just also to be able to understand our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters from other countries, other backgrounds. That's one of the challenges we have, mainly to understand this diversity in terms of practice and thought as well, I think.
It's extremely interesting, and I think I'm going to ask Doctor, if you could just give us some insight as to, what sort of themes and discussions one could expect when engaging or signing up for this particular course.
So first of all, it's a 10 sessions course, which is not so long to address this huge topic. We can spend a whole year or 2 years to develop the different aspects of the course. But we have 10 sessions, so we try to give a topic for each of the session. We start by talking about the diversity of Islamic manifestations, which appear to be a contradiction with the unicity message. So to start, it was a very theoretical approach. We talked about, for instance, the discursive tradition of the Professor Talal Asad, and then we had a more concrete overview on Islamic movements in the contemporary Muslim societies, but also non-Muslim majority societies today, by exposing what means to be Salafi, talk about the Muslim Brotherhood movement, Jamaat Tabligh, Ahbash, and a lot of other groups. We just try to give some general insight on them. And finally, this led us to think about the cleavage between what we can call traditional Islam on one hand and reformist Islam, which appear to be in contradiction with the traditional aspect and approach to Islam. So the very idea here is to take concrete examples again as movements which we can see in today's mosque, such as the Deobandi or Salafi or some of the Sufi Turuq. But at the same time, we want to go more in depth to understand the roots of the differences they have. So it's more linked to the methodological approach to the text, to the Quran and Sunnah. So we discussed that in the class, but within the next weeks, we will have another approach, mostly to talk about activism, to talk about da'wah, and charity organizations, how they develop their own projects, how they understand Islam and their contribution to society, to both Muslim communities, but also to the wider society. So that's topics we would like to explore. It also needs to have a look into epistemological issue, which is very crucial today to understand all that wide diversity or even contradiction we can assess within Muslim organizations and tendencies.
I have in studio with me Dr. Yahya Baptiste Brodard. We're giving you some insight into the course on offer by IPSA. It's a 5-week course on contemporary Muslim societies and organizations. I also encourage you to head on over to IPSA's Facebook page for some more insight with regards, and this course particularly, where it comes from is that the Maqasid Institute is an organization that aims to develop a renewed contemporary interpretation of the Islamic tradition in order to address social, political, environmental and cultural issues. And this is the background against which this particular course has been developed, of course based on Dr. Yahya's own personal experiences and his very intense travels and studies of organizations and Muslim societies and communities right across the globe, in 50 countries to be specific. Now, Doctor, you mentioned in just before we went for the break that certain Islamic movements and organizations are explored within this particular course. Can you give us some insight into the types of Islamic movements that are examined within this study?
Yes, welcome back. There are quite a lot of examples that the course want to address, but the main difficulty here, before answering to your question, is that we want to be worldwide. We want to explore what happened in a lot of continents, and some people in the class, as they come from Cape Town or at least South Africa, may ask why we want to hear examples from Europe or North America or even Latin America or wherever. And the simple reply to that question is that actually we can speak about Islamic transnational movements which come from a specific country, which have a specific history also, but they get spread out into the world. And what one can assess in the US or in Morocco, tomorrow it will be here also, because some of the schools of thought or movements try to grow into the world and they try to compete even for orthodoxy. So such examples are numerous. We can talk about the Salafism, what other people call Wahhabism, and that's a very important question too, to try to understand why they call themselves Salafi, why other people call themselves Wahhabi. And this, for instance, has significantly raised in a lot of European countries over the last 30 years, as well as a lot of Arab countries. But also it can be seen here, and it's very important to understand all the roots of these movements. Let's say about Salafism, but also Tabligh, Muslim Brotherhood. Why is it important? Just because all of the movements claim to be totally in line with Islamic teachings. They claim to fight for orthodoxy, to represent the real orthodox, authentic expression of Islam. So they don't like to be labeled as such. They like to show themselves as the real Muslims. But it's very crucial to understand their roots. If not, a young person may go to a mosque and he will be somehow influenced by them, which may make him hate other Muslim groups. What we witnessed that for over 20 years, we have that problem in a lot of countries. But as long as we understand the roots, the origin, the methods, the methodology within these Islamic movements, this allow people to get their own idea and to be able to choose what they want to follow, but to be more open in terms of accepting the other Muslim movements, and to respect diversity among Muslims in terms of practice, but even in terms of thought.
Now, Doctor, you mentioned that, one might think that, you're sitting in Cape Town in South Africa. Of what value is it to us to understand, all of these other, all of these other ideas of what Islam is out there. Do you find this phenomena in other countries as well, or is it, location specific? Are they, if within your travels and within your exploration of Muslim communities, is this a similar mindset that exists in other countries? Are people open to wanting to understand these types of thought processes and evolution of Islamic thought?
Normally, what I can witness here, I can see the same challenges and problems and issues in a lot of other countries. So it's very similar in terms of questions that people may ask about what's the real Islam and how to deal with the diversification of Islamic movements. So it's very widespread issues we can witness. What's very important and interesting in Cape Town, it's a place, despite of a few percentage of Muslims, you have here so many scholars having come from a lot of various religious backgrounds. I think that's one of the places of the world I have seen the wider, the broader diversity in terms of Islam in just one town, in just one city, which is amazing because you have, first of all, it's a very traditionalist based when talking about the Cape Malay following Shafi'i madhab and Ash'ari in terms of Aqidah. So you have that strong historically, but at the same time, over the last, I think, 20 or 30 years, you have a lot of Muslim thinkers, or even before, coming from other countries, other backgrounds, trying to teach their way of understanding Islam. And today here you have such a wide diversity of Islamic movements. Just to name a few, you have the Morabitun, which is present here. You have a lot of Sufi Turuq as well. You have, of course, the Abandi movement. You have Salafi. You can find so many expressions even outside of the Sunni. You can find a lot, the mainstream Islamic movements you find in other countries. You will see them in Cape Town now. So it's amazing, and it requires to think carefully about where they come from, what they teach that, because actually even in terms of social impact or political impact, it will help to understand why they take such positions. And one may think that the diversity of Islamic movements is just a theoretical matter, but actually it really influences reality as well. It influences the choices of people in terms of practice. We have a few examples in that also. If you want to read
please give us some insight into that, because we I think as Cape Townians, we of course we pride ourselves on how beautiful and how diverse and how accepting our society and our city is, but I can't even put into words how excited it makes me to be having a conversation like this, because these are things that we sort of overlook. We take for granted the sources, we take for granted the access that we have to these different types of thoughts when it comes to the interpretation of Islam that we have right here on our doorstep. In other countries, perhaps you'd have to send your child overseas if that is an Islamic ideology that you wanted your child to sort of grow up in or to understand or to sort of practice. Whereas in Cape Town, as Doctor mentioned, you have this diverse range of practices that is happening, and it's just I'm at a loss for words to explain how excited it makes me to be able to have an individual as esteemed as yourself, Doctor, to come in and offer this this exploration to us right here.
Yeah, shukran. Thanks a lot for the comment and question. I think a few examples concretely. You have the issue of zakat al-mal, and the traditionalist mainstream position is that zakat has to be given only to Muslims. That is basically what we learn in the major schools of thought. But today, there are other groups involved in what we can call reformist Islam, or progressive Islam, which is something else also, but I can't give the course here. I'm sorry to use such a concept, but they challenge that, and they say, let's go back to the Quran and Sunnah and what the Quran really say about that. And they get up with another interpretation which supports themselves to assume that zakat has to be given to everybody regardless of religious belongings. No, the concrete interpretation of that is that you find NGOs, you find zakat management organizations around the world trying to establish humanitarian projects in various countries, but based on their interpretation they have about zakat, they have different practice. Because if they think it's only for Muslims, so they need to use their money only to reach Muslim recipients. But other people, like even Islamic Relief has project in Haiti or Salvador in Latin America, and some of them disagree in terms of interpretation, which is very challenging to expose such a vision, because you still have mainstream interpretation and other most minor interpretations which challenge the status quo. But it has a real impact because according to what people believe, especially within such organizations, the practice in the field will be totally different. We have that problem for da'wah in Latin America. When I'm doing a research study now in Mexico, in Colombia, I want to understand first what's the reason behind conversions, major conversions of people to Islam, but also deconversion, because a lot of people, they leave Islam after trying to study and stay as Muslims. They got tired of it and they leave it. So I try to understand what happened there. And actually, you realize that a lot of stakeholders, Muslim organizations, are very active in those countries. But the problem, most of them won't call people to Islam. They will call people to their own denomination.
Yes.
They will call people to Salafism or to Naqshbandi group, or they will call people to any denomination or school of thought they have. So they make Islam much tighter, much smaller as it really is. And they make also the practice difficult for new Muslims. So I think this is very interesting again to analyze what's happening in society and to assess reality before getting involved in activism. Even when we claim to do da'wah, some of the organizations may think they do da'wah, but actually they just do the opposite, because after they go somewhere, people become to have animosity against Islam. They become to hate Islam because just they made it everything complicated. It's very crucial, I think, on the first stage to understand what's happening, and then to go back to the Quran, Sunnah, and the Islamic tradition broadly to understand if what they do is in line with Islam, is in compliance with the Islamic teachings and principles.
Yes, of course. Now, on the issue of dawah, as Doctor has mentioned, which is quite interesting, and anybody who has either been involved with, or not I wouldn't, if you are part of an organization who practices giving dawah, or you have been part of a team organizing some of these outreaches, then a lot of what Doctor has mentioned would resonate with you. But on the issue of dawah, there is a seminar on offer being presented by Dr. Yahya, and it takes place on Saturday, this Saturday, the 5th of June, from 9 a.m. until Dhuhr, and lunch will be served. Takes place at IPSA. So the cause of the lunch will be served, because that's always a draw card.
Welcome.
So the seminar is titled Dawah Today, Challenges and Solutions. So Dawah Today must take into account challenges that did not exist in the past. Firstly, Islamophobia is manifesting itself in distinct forms in academic and intellectual spaces, and Dawah involves responding to anti-Islamic arguments at an intellectual level. Secondly, Islam suffers from a negative image, and this requires an appropriate social and political response. And finally, while engaging in Dawah in societies where Muslims are a minority, many mistakes are being made and are having a counterproductive effect. Now, the seminar will be discussing these issues and will identify solutions and also develop ways of performing more effective dawah, and it will be presented by Dr. Yahya, who is currently in studio with me. So for those of you who would like some more information, you need to RSVP by emailing Masnoona Kamali at mkamali@ipsa-edu.org. If you are interested, please just send me a WhatsApp, and I will send you the poster, and you can make your reservations. There isn't a lot of time. It's already the 2nd of June. This is taking place on Saturday, inshallah. So if you are interested, please let me know as soon as possible, and I will send this particular poster your way. Now, I think it's important for us to sort of focus on on what Doctor mentioned. We're speaking about contemporary Muslim organizations. You speak about traditionalist Islam and reformist Islam and activism in dawah and all of these sort of things, Doctor, and it allows one to wonder how is the Quran and Sunnah applied within this particular context? How is Quran and Sunnah understood, applied, and extrapolated to our current situation and challenges that we face as contemporary Muslim societies?
First of all, I would say that because a lot of projects or organizations claim to be Islamic, referring mostly to an identity. They say we do Islamic work, Islamic whatever. It's like we even have Islamic restaurants in some countries, and everything is Islamic as a level. But actually, one may need to ask what is Islamic and what they say. Same thing with da'wah projects. Same thing with especially humanitarian Islamic NGOs. They say we are doing that for fi sabilillah. We are Muslims, so it's an Islamic project. But when you look carefully at what they do, sometimes there are big contradictions with Islam. And how we know that? We know that by us returning to the reading of Quran, Sunnah, and even the broader Islamic tradition which has been developed throughout the centuries. And we see that in many cases, what they claim to be Islamic is totally non-Islamic. There are a lot of examples. Just to be short, now you have Muslims feeding homeless, very good work from Muslim associations, charity work. But some of them do very interesting projects, while others make mistakes in terms of the religious teachings, because while they are interviewed, one well-known person, it's written in a book, she said, I don't care about the poor. She's the person in charge of the Muslim charity. She said, I'm doing that just for hasanat. I don't care about the poor. This is totally against Islamic teaching, because we just can, very quickly, we refer to the hadith of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, none of you will reach the state of Iman till he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. This is fundamental hadith, sahih. The message is very clear here. It means we have to know, to want for other people what we want for ourselves, and to love for the others when we want for ourselves. So if we help anybody and we claim to do that fi sabilillah, it means we do that because of compassion, because of the love we feel for them. We want them to be happy just as we are happy, to eat what we eat, because they are humans, and we believe that every human has the right, and we have to share that. So this is Islamic teachings in depth. But sometimes you have Islamic projects claiming to be Islamic, and they do very strange things in the name of Islam, especially in the field of da'wah. So so many examples like that have to be tackled and addressed. I think it's very problematic today, and somehow we failed to understand that, and we failed to talk about that over the last years, I think.
So, and I can't even stress how important these things are. One point that perhaps I could properly articulate right now is the fact that it is small little things like correcting our understanding of what Quran and what Quran and Hadith and Sunnah demand of us, correcting our understanding in line with that will lead to our progression as a society, as Muslims particularly, beyond the debates of what constitutes hijab, or what the length of one's beard should be, or how short your pants should be. It's little things that we take for granted, that we overlook, that we leave to the authorities, whatever that body might be in your community, in your country. We leave these sort of decisions up to them, and we take what they say as gospel in a sense. And so it's important for us as individuals to go out and do the research and educate ourselves, so that collectively as a society we know and we are confident in our understanding, in our aqeedah, of what it is that we essentially believe in. and I'm going to ask, our doctor's obviously a lot more articulate than I am. For the everyday average person on the street, doctor, the average Muslim tuned in right now, who might not necessarily be an academic, of what value is there for such a particular person in understanding the evolution of Islamic thought, especially within the context of the society in which we live today?
I think even such a person needs to take that carefully, because at that time, a few years ago, let's say a few decades ago, such a person, I wouldn't advise him to understand all the religious diversity, because it wasn't a topic for everybody. It wasn't positive to think about that. But now, because of the society evolution where people are exposed to so many influences, just online, especially online. So this person who follows one madhab and is nice, he's happy with the way he practices Islam. For himself, he doesn't need to understand all the Islamic tendencies. If it is not interesting in that, I don't think it's very important for him. But the main problem now is that if the same person has some children growing up here, their children will certainly and for sure be exposed to a wide, diverse interpretations of Islam, mostly online, but even in the mosques. And they may be confused, and they may come back with a lot of questions. Why we believe in that? Why we have to wear hijab? Some people say the contrary of that. Everything will be addressed as a new question about the relevance of Islam. So we are in the area where knowledge is really important for all of us, because it's the only mean we can keep our community strong and in the straight path, because we are exposed to a lot of diverse interpretations, not just for sincere Muslims. This is not the problem. The bottom line here is that also you have projects around the world which try to teach Islam in order to deconstruct Islam. So they want to challenge the veracity of the Quran, and they write so much. And you will find these videos online, you will find a lot of articles, and young Muslims, when they read that, they may be very confused and have some doubts about their faith. So that's why such a course or reflection is crucial for today's, in order to keep our faith strong and to understand where these people come from. Because alhamdulillah, in Islam there is no contradiction in the Quran and proper Sunnah. The meaning is very strong, but it's very challenged by a lot of ideologies. In those ideologies you can find a lot of mistakes, but it takes time to assess them. And I would add here that in the Maqasid Institute, the main approach is twofold. On the one hand, it's very important to assess today's reality, which is not needed to go to the Quran, Sunnah, or any religious teachings. This is sociological perspective. Understand how people live, which challenge they face, what are the situations in terms of economics, social issues, politics, whatever. This is crucial in terms of fiqh, because the fiqh cannot be applied without understanding the society. And the society always evolves, which is necessary for the Muslim thinkers, the imams, to think about those issues. The second stage is to go back to Islam, to the Islamic principles, Quran, Sunnah, the fiqh production, and to look for responses to our challenges and to try to connect both dimensions. Assessing reality and deriving from Islamic text the solutions, the insights, the knowledge to be able to address our common issues. I think that's crucial at that time where so many people doubt, so many influence come to tackle Islamic teachings.
Of course, we live in the age of information, and as Dr. so rightly pointed out, if you're not going to do it for yourself, then at least, do it for your kids, because children are going to have questions. They do encounter a lot on the internet. There is no limit to the amount of information they have access to on the internet. And so it's very important for us, again, collectively as a society, to inform ourselves so that we may progress as Muslims, as we are meant to. You know, it is incumbent upon every person to seek knowledge, be they male or female, from the cradle to the grave. Now, if you would like some more insight, the course tomorrow, inshallah, or today, this evening, will be lesson number 4, or part 4 of the discussion. The course started on the 24th of May, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, there's still an opportunity for you to join. The course is titled Contemporary Muslim Societies and Organizations. It is delivered by Dr. Yahya Baptiste Brodard. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in studio. I look forward to reading more into your works, inshallah. And until we are able and fortunate enough to be able to have you back on Radio 786, you take care. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran, dear sister. I want to send my salams to all listeners. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran kathiran.
Afwan. Dr. Yahya Baptiste Brodard, who is a assistant professor and research fellow at the Maqasid Institute as well as at IPSA.